Welcome, beloved. We are putting this podcast on for our Kingdom Cultivators, and we're in the midst of the season of Advent and talking about different aspects of that. We have picked 4 words. This is a traditional view of Advent. For long ago, the early church started wrapping Advent around hope and peace, joy and love. And so this is our third conversation. And so today we're going to be looking at the word joy and what that means for Christmas, what that means for followers of Jesus, what it means for this Advent season. So to kick it off, I just want to ask Dave and Justin, when you hear the word joy, what do you think of? What comes to your mind?
I think that what comes to my mind is a synonym that's not a synonym. I think a lot of people, like we've talked about with hope being wishful thinking, but not being that, being deeper than that. I think that joy and happiness get lumped together. And I think that's a mistake because I know people that are joyful that aren't happy. I mean, I think that we have taken joy and we see people that are a little bit more melancholy or more dark cloud, and we think that they don't have
That's a reference
joy.
to Scott.
Right, Chief? Dark
Chief.
cloud?
Dark cloud.
But, I think that joy is this kind of inner something that kind of comes out, whereas happiness is so circumstantial.
I think for me, the first thing that I think of when I think of joy is that song. I got the joy down in my heart, deep down. Is that how it goes?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, for me, is that like I got this joy deep down in my heart, and probably a lot of times it doesn't come out very often, or it does, and I don't even know. I think joy is one of those things of how do you like differentiate that of happiness and joy and all excitement, right? I don't know. For me, it's like, how do I actually explain what joy is and understand what joy is?
Well, what's funny about that is if you go on with the song, the chorus is, and I'm so happy, so very happy. So like even that song equates the two. I was looking back kind of over the quote from C.S. Lewis that kind of accompanies this. And I just was struck by even he has a hard time defining it.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, but you know it when it is there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a pleasure thing. It's not a happiness thing. It's an inner contentment, there's a peace to it.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw back to you. Like, how would you, Scott, describe joy?
Well, okay, now I wrestle with it as well. I mean, like Dave.
Sorry, you can tell from West Texas. I wrestle with it. It's not wrestle.
I wrestle.
I wrestle.
There is a difference between wrestling and wrestling.
Sorry.
Well, I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. Yeah, there is a little bit of redneck here. So. Yeah, I do struggle with it because, like Dave made reference to, one of the nicknames my children have for me is Chief Dark Cloud, and so I do struggle with this. I had a moment in my life where my mom had been struggling with cancer. I got a call from Dad saying, you need to get here now. So I loaded up a car and was driving. I was 7 hours away. And on the way I was talking to God, and I was just talking to him about how there was just no joy in these moments as we're saying goodbye to her, getting ready to say goodbye to her. And I can take you to the spot on the highway when this encounter took place, but I was complaining and griping to God about it, the situation, and I heard within me this other mind other than mine presented a thought to me, and it was this, is that joy is a matter of perspective. And then came a question after that: are you doing those things that are gaining my perspective? And so from that point on, I began to look at the biblical stories and the idea of joy as it's a perspective. It's having God's perspective on things. That's joy, and it's not less than a feeling. It's not less than being joyful, bubbly, rejoicing. It's not less than that, but it's more than that. It's gaining God's perspective. When you have God's perspective, and maybe it would be even better to say it this way, when you have God's perspective on something, the byproduct of that is joy. Mm-hmm. So that's been my reframe for me. And as I've taken it to Scripture, and when I come across that word, rejoice, joyful, joy, then I reframe it in my mind. Does this fit? Is it talking here about a connection to God's perspective, a heavenly perspective? When I have that, our Father who art in heaven, his perspective, does that produce this thing that I can call joy? And I that's where I've come out on it. So
I think that's huge, because I think that lends itself to, regardless of circumstances, regardless of whatever else, I can choose to have joy. I can choose to rejoice always,
right,
as it says.
Right.
And if I understand that correctly, it's like I can choose to have God's perspective regardless of situation, circumstance, or whatever is going on. But man, that's hard.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it's hard to like think about this idea of rejoicing always, or choosing God's perspective in every situation and circumstance.
Yeah, I agree. It is hard. It's not easy, and it's not a quick thing either. It's not like, God, would you drop a newsletter so I get your perspective and then I can move on? No, it's not like that. It's if you're gaining someone's perspective, you're connecting in a way that is developing a serious, deep relationship. And so joy is relational, but I would say all of these words are.
The scripture that just came to mind in speaking of Jesus, where it says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame. Like that, that's the opposite circumstances. Those are not happy circumstances at all.
Right.
And yet that's the term that is used there for the joy. I mean,
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. It is. It also gives this, consider this. When we talk about these words that, the traditional church is looked at in Advent, hope, peace, joy, love, consider that maybe the order has purpose as well. And that, the beginning of hope, that's where it starts, this confident, expectant, waiting, and then that can lead to or pour itself into this thing called peace, this shalom. And those two together, when they are dancing together, when they're operating together, that rolls over into this thing called joy. That there might be some purpose to the order of these words as well. So.
Yeah, which makes sense. Then the last one's going to be love. And so after you're experiencing hope and peace, shalom, and now joy, it lends itself to get to this place of love.
Yeah.
So kind of as we're sitting here in joy, though, and so what I'm hearing, what I'm kind of processing and thinking is that joy, it's beyond an emotion. It's beyond a feeling. It can be those things, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, joy is having God's perspective in whatever is going on in life. And is that something I can choose, or I have to choose?
I would say yes. I think it's I don't think God would force his perspective upon you. I do think, though, that he offers it more than we realize.
We had a conversation last night about formation, about identity formation, spiritual formation, all those things. And one of the questions that was asked was kind of couched in terms of, well, there comes a level of faking it till you make it, that kind of phrase.
Yes.
And while I don't love that phrase, I do think that there has to be some intentionality. I don't think that we can long for these things without intentionality to it. There has to be time when life is not great, but we have to almost stir up within us, the spirit within us, stir up joy to live into that. I'm not saying that this has to be a perfect thing, but I do think that there becomes an element of practicing that, right?
Yes.
looking at it, I mean, there are a lot of things going on in life that you can look at from a very negative perspective. But I think that there has to be some intentionality that says, I'm choosing in the midst of this darkness to find joy.
Yes. Yeah. If you look at these words like postures, you're intentional about your posture. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So kind of practically, what would it look like then to choose joy or to begin to live into that invitation of joy? What do you think some practical things could be?
What would be practical things to gain God's perspective on something?
So for me, it's that idea of the examine, right? So like something I, not every day, but most days I try to like kind of reflect back and think about the conversations I had, think back through situations, how I acted, how other ones, I mean, whatever, but like there's think of it, taking an examine of placing the day before the Lord and saying, hey, is there things here that I need to learn? Or is there areas that maybe throughout the day that I needed to have your perspective and I didn't? And that's kind of a post kind of thing, right? I don't know if that, but that for me, that's been kind of one way, practical thing that I've tried to have God's perspective.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen just in several different places in scrolling and in reading is I almost feel like, especially in the world we live in, that these feelings of anxiety that seem very overwhelming a lot of times are opportunities for us to lean into trust and peace and joy. I mean, they are signals that there is something not right about the world. I think we're anxious people for a reason. I think there are a lot of things going on, but I think that those are opportunities every time to breathe in and breathe out and try to look with new eyes on what is the Spirit saying to me through this.
My answer for this is that at my little church, I decided to preach through the book of Proverbs. And this is probably my 5th or 6th time to do this with a group of people. I remember trying to do a teaching through the book of Proverbs in college to a group of high school students. So anyway, as I've been studying and reading, I've been struck by how often in the book of Proverbs it says, listen. So, chapter 4 starts, listen, my son. And then in other times when it says, pay attention. And so it struck me that if I want to be a wise person, let's replace that then. If I want to be a joyful person, then learning to listen, silence and solitude, brings me to God's perspective. Does that make sense? Yeah. So in our today society, Scott Latham with his massive ADHD, to sit still, to listen, and not just get into a quiet place, but to get my brain to shut up, where I can listen. That's when I will gain God's perspective. Now, a lot of times where that's for me is when I'm journaling. I'll get the journal out and I'm writing prayers to God. I'm asking for things. I'm talking to Him about things, and then, like I described earlier, there will be this other mind present its thought to my mind. I know it's not coming from my mind, and I will get a different colored pen, and I will write that in my journal. And in that moment, I'm gaining God's perspective on something.
At this point in the whole sequence, like we're starting off week 3, so we've done 2 weeks of this, and I hope that you're following along with all of the curriculum and stuff. But one of the things that is expressed at some point, I think already, but like journaling is just, it's a settling in.
Yes.
And I don't know that this is old school, but I know that people like to type and have it. Like, I think just the handwriting, the slowing down, the having something that you can put in your backpack or your bag that you have with you at all times to reference. I think that is a valuable tool to experience joy.
Yes. Hand-eye motion, the fact that you're crafting something, even though it's just a letter or a word, that deepens what you're doing. It's a deepening of what you're learning than this. And you're not even watching your fingers at this point. You're watching a screen.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not against that. I mean, that's still capturing things.
Right.
But this,
There's something.
it carves. It carves out something in your mind when you're doing that on a piece of paper.
What I'm hearing, though, in this is like this invitation to joy, to have God's perspective. It takes silence and solitude. It takes examine. It takes journaling, which during this season and culturally around us getting ready for Christmas, that's totally opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of our culture's like that all the time, but it seems like, especially leading up to Christmas, right? It gets almost like the busiest time of year where you're looking at your Christmas parties, you're looking at your kids' stuff, you're looking at your company stuff, you're looking at all these things. And so, like, it's during this time of Advent where we're being invited to kind of slow down and pause. Culturally, there seems to be even more pressed upon us to be even busier. So, like, to kind of be these kingdom cultivators, and to be intentional and aware during this season of Advent, it's like we're going up against something that, like, doesn't want us to. I don't know. It's just kind of experience.
I mean, it's just to what we said earlier. One of the kind of predominant feelings I had kind of last night when we were chatting is there has to be intentionality. Like it's not just going to happen. Like you're not just going to show up and have extra time during this holiday season. There's going to have to be some. It might be staying up 30 extra minutes, or getting up 30 minutes, or having a short lunch and putting some time in there. It's not just going to happen, especially this season, because we'll blink and it's New Year's. And so intentionality, and that's what we were getting at with all of this curriculum is we're trying to help with intentionality. We're trying to take one of the excuses away. Well, I can be intentional, but I don't know what to do. Well, here, just do this, and it might not be perfect, but it is going to bring about, cultivate some intentionality.
Yes. I mean, consider that the busyness that hits this season might be by design, with a scheme or a plan behind it. And where we, instead of expecting Jesus, we're watching for him, we lose him in the busyness of it.
Dude, I've loved this conversation. I love this idea of thinking of joy as less a feeling or an emotion or whatever else, but it's choosing God's perspective in whatever situation. And so I think for me, this has been really good to think of joy that way, rather than maybe how I've thought about it, or even haven't even thought about it. It's been kind of this, I don't even know what joy is, but kind of sitting here thinking about it, like that, having God's perspective is what allows me to live into a place of joy, and that's what joy is.
That is how it comes for me. Yeah.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So we just want to invite you this next week to journey with us as we're continuing to unpack what joy is, how we can live into it, and then realizing that, this is just 1 week within leading up to Christmas, but this is an invitation that we have all the time. This is an invitation to choose joy, to live in joy, not just this next week, but throughout all of our weeks. So we just want to invite you to jump in and continue to join with us. If you haven't gotten kind of signed up on the email list or whatever else to get kind of what we're talking about, what we push out, man, let us know. We would love to get you connected to that. And we're excited. We got one more week coming up of looking at love. And so join us.